I'm Beth Radow, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck, along with Louise Perez. And we are here today to welcome United States Representative George Latimer as our guest speaker. Before we get started, if you haven't had a chance, I think you may have, but if you haven't had a chance to say hello to the people at your table, please do. We will have a chance to chat after our first guest speaker and before George comes on. So, we got a lot to cover. We're going to rock and roll now. We are living in a moment of rapid change, much of it beyond our immediate control, and it bears mentioning that the best way to preserve democracy's future is to take action. Our guest speakers will give us insight into what they are doing and ideas as to what we can do to meet the moment. We at the League have prepared a guide to action that is on your dining table, and it is also posted on the League of Women Voters Larchmont Mamaroneck website. I've just gotten word, we know that Shelley Mayer and Steve Otis, who are going to be joining us for a Q&A after Representative Latimer speaks, are in meetings. So we're not 100% sure if and when they're going to come, but we will be able to fill up the Q&A, no doubt, but hopefully they will be able to join us. Thank you to all who participated in the raffle, and we will announce the winner after lunch. Our annual luncheon is a collaborative effort, and thanks to co-president Louise Perez, Judy Silberstein, Marlene Colbert, Alice Pernick, Suzanne Iasenza, Fran Snedeker, the Rybrook Portchester chapter's co-presidents Roz Carvin and Liz Rotfeld, and the New Rochelle chapter's president Joan Alexander. As in years past, Maria Valenti, the owner of Mamaroneck's Chocolations on Boston Post Road, has donated the chocolates, and she has again today. She was hopefully going to make it here, but she had a conflict, and she asked me to please give her best regards to George Latimer. Thanks to Sarah Scott, the chef, and all at Orienta Beach Club for this beautiful setting and our lunch, and thanks as well to LMC Media and cameraman Sal for filming today's event. Welcome to our elected officials who are here with us. Today, please stand as I read your name. If I miss somebody, please let me know. My apologies. And please hold your applause until after I introduce everyone. We are welcoming United States Representative George Latimer, Westchester County Legislator Catherine Parker, Westchester County Legislator Judah Holstein, and all of whom, well, we were going to also, as I mentioned, Shelley Mayer and Steve Otis, and we will have them join us for a Q&A panel after George Latimer speaks. We also welcome Town of Mamaroneck Supervisor Jane Elkind-Eney, Larchmont Mayor Sarah Bauer, Town of Rye Supervisor Gary Zuckerberg, Mamaroneck Village Judge Christy Derrico, Village of Larchmont Trustee Bridget Brennan, Village of Larchmont Trustee Peter Finelli, Village of Larchmont Trustee Dana Post, Town of Mamaroneck Council Member Sabrina Fiddleman, Village of Mamaroneck Trustee Nora Lucas, Village of Rybrook Trustee David Heiser, and Mamaroneck Town Clerk Allison May. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, Terrence Barre, Village of Larchmont Trustee.
Welcome. We welcome Mamaroneck High School government teacher Joe Liberti, with whom we partner annually to register high school students to vote and otherwise collaborate to mentor students enrolled in Joe's Original Civics Research and Action Program, aka OCRA. This year we also made contact with Rhinebeck High School to register 11th and 12th grade students to vote. One of Joe's OCRA students who was with us last year, Caitlin Solis, has been selected to participate in the New York State League-sponsored Students Inside Albany program in May. And she put together a walking trail that has a relationship with Realm, and I know that Judy Silberstein and Ned Benton have put information on your chair about Realm. Please take it home, support this very important initiative. This past December, while researching artists who use their talent to create art that advocates with force through imagery, I discovered New York artist Mary Frank, who in 2017 created the truth button that we celebrate here today. Mary's dedication to human rights inspired me to invite her to join us here today. Before Mary comes up to speak, I'd like to tell you a little bit about her. Mary Frank moved to the United States in 1940 with her mother, Eleanor Lochspizer, a painter. Mary studied dance with Martha Graham and majored in dance at the Professional Children's School in New York. Primarily a self-taught artist, Mary studied drawing with Hans Beckmann, and carving wood in the late 50s, she went on to explore ceramics in the late 60s and early 70s, and has since made extraordinary artwork in a variety of mediums and materials. Mary's artistic vocabulary incorporates photography, painting, bronze, jewelry, collage, organic materials, mask making, printmaking, and illustration. There are a few examples of Mary's art at the front. Mary has collaborated with the writer and environmentalist Terry Tempest Williams on a series of books with Peter Matheson, illustrating out of Africa, and with Peter Kafias of Eakins Press on Pilgrimage, to name a few. Mary's artwork has been used in set and theater design across the country, and over the span of 7 decades, her sculptures and paintings have been collected by major museums, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Modern Art, the Guggenheim Museum, the Whitney Museum of Art, as well as the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston and Fine Arts Museum San Francisco. Mary has exhibited at prestigious museums and sculpture parks across the United States, including the National Gallery of Art, the Art Institute of Chicago, Philadelphia Museum of Art, and the Brooklyn Museum of Art. You've probably seen her work. She has also received many honors, including 2 Guggenheim Awards and the National Council on Arts, Joan Mitchell Award, and the Brandeis University Creative Arts Award. Throughout her life and work, Mary has been a fierce advocate for human rights. She has worked tirelessly for Solar Cookers International for the last 20 years, promoting the use of a simple, safe, and affordable way of using solar energy to cook, improving the health and saving lives of women and children in underdeveloped countries. Mary's Truth Button, in production since the first Women's March in 2017, has generated thousands of dollars in donations to Planned Parenthood. 28,000. And ticking. Mary is represented by D.C. Moore Gallery in New York and Elena Zhang Gallery in Woodstock. Her work is currently on view in several New York galleries, and she will have a major show next year at the Eastern Connecticut State University Art Museum. Mary is married to musicologist Leo Treitler and lives and works in New York City and upstate New York. Please give a warm welcome for celebrated artist and human rights advocate Mary Frank.
Thank you.
Do you see if you need to adjust that for you?
Yeah,
Speak loud.
I will.
Thanks.
I'm very glad to be here, see the water. Tell me if you can hear or not. No. Hello? Now you can? Good. Tell me anytime I move too far away. Okay. And Endlessly, I ask myself, what is art for? The list changes. When people make music, they inhale, connect their eyes, and on exhalation, begin the music. I would love to make that moment visible. What is art for? To comfort the dead, to wake up the living, to mark the changes of day to night, to give courage to use oneself fully, to transform pain into joy, to know we are nature, to know the migrations of stars, plants, fish, birds, and mammals, and the immigrations of people, to take nothing for granted. A body of work is a wonderful expression. The feet, the space between the bones, the sigh, the scream, the wings, the eyes, the connective tissue in us and between all living beings. I think that's it. And here on a leaf, I used to write when I talked always on these leaves, which are all over the Caribbean, and when they dry, I draw on them and write on them. I just wrote on this leaf, we need an immensity of vision as vast as the sky. And we need that now more than ever. There are a few posters here. I've made posters from before Vietnam, and I carry them in the street. And people, because of what's been done, people are not getting the information they need. And I go, like for instance, in the elevator of the Whitney, where they have work of mine, not on show now, but last year. I'm sorry, can't stop my phone. Okay, maybe it stopped. And I announce in the elevator, do you know there's a protest, this was last week, on Saturday, and where it is? No, what protest? What are you talking about? I didn't know. Why didn't I know? You know why you didn't know. Indivisible is one of the best sources, but there are others too, but it's very important that people know. And the protests are mounting, and they are having effect, and they need to continue, and they're happening in all states. I think that's it. I have something for, if not all of you, most of you, so you can share. And it's the flyers from Solar Cookers. I've worked for them for 22 years. We cooked meat, fish, bread, rice, beans, bread, cake, and purified water in front of the UN with the simplest solar cookers, which look a little bit like what people used to get sunburned. They didn't want to be black, but they wanted to be sunburned, right? And the solar cookers fold up like those did, and they can be shipped all over the world, and now I think they're in over 60 languages of how to do it. And there were people from, I think, about 26 countries, men and women, who had heard about solar cookers, but they had never tasted the food or seen it. And they had tears, men and women from all these countries, tears pouring down their faces when they got to taste it, because it's delicious and extremely healthy. And right now in Kakuma, it's one of the biggest and oldest refugee camps in Kenya, because of what's been taken away from the world by you know who, there's no food coming in. So there are all these thousands and thousands and thousands of refugees, and they were told to bring a pot of their own, and they will be given a pot of food for a month. Okay.
Thank you, Mary. We're all asking what we can do, and today really is devoted to finding out what our elected officials are doing and what we can do. So you ask what you can do, and one of the things you can do is wear Mary's Truth Button. I've purchased one for each of you. I've given them out to some of you already. It's a beautiful image. It sparks conversation. And I think, at least personally, the truth is what we need right now to be able to preserve our democracy. I will be coming around during lunch with Sal to the tables to get your thoughts about what's happening now and maybe what we could be doing at the League, or really what's on your mind for posterity. More about that in a minute. In 1944, an American Army doctor stationed in France sent a letter with French coins to his infant son, writing, "Your daddy had to leave you and Mom because the words on some of the coins were changed. Your daddy is now helping to change those words back to the way they used to be. Liberty, equality, fraternity, so that you will not have to leave your little boy when you are a papa. Yes, I know it sounds silly to leave you just for that, but you see, the bad people wanted to change lots of other things, and that wasn't good. It made many people very sad, and even little boys like you never smiled. That Army doctor was my father, Dr. Isaac Bear Radow. The infant was my late brother, Mike. Today, on domestic soil, we face the urgent need to preserve the rule of law, our civic rights and liberties, personal autonomy, and environmental protections that we have come to associate with the democratic way of life. And the League of Women Voters is here to meet the moment. As most of you here know, the League of Women Voters was founded as a nonpartisan organization in 1919, 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified, to register voters, educate, and advocate, all essential elements for our participatory democracy. And the century-old mission continues. To meet this critical moment, beginning this spring, I will host a monthly program on LMC Media called This is What Democracy Looks Like. Drawing from our community, expect insights into little-known but essential elements of what makes a democratic way of life work. Segments on the day-to-day contributions by our elected officials. Community neighbors who volunteer their time, such as on volunteer committees. Many of you here are familiar with that because you do volunteer to make this community work so well. I have an interview with a poll worker planned, candidates debate moderator, first responder, librarian, as well as students researching and acting on ways to improve local conditions. Expect interviews of a broad range of people with videos from the community, including self-produced shorts. And when woven together, the nonpartisan pieces will showcase our own community to demonstrate what democracy looks like. Local artists and musicians will be invited to share what democracy looks like and what democracy sounds like. Mary Frank gives us a spectacular example. Think about what sparks your interest to celebrate the virtues of a balanced, workable democracy. Consider what is incumbent upon we the people, we the voters, to improve the dialogue and outcomes, and let me know. And in a nod to education and creativity, Bookshare the side table, and when you have a chance, please take a look, and if there's anything up there that sparks your interest, take it home with you. We've got to keep reading alive, we've got to keep our creativity alive, we've got to keep our democracy alive. Just want to let you know that I found out that Lobby Day will take place, as we all know, on May 6th, but we got a note from Erica Smitka from New York State that they are looking to arrange buses if people are interested in going. So you should write to, either you can write to us or let her know. If there is interest, they will provide that I think at no cost, and there will be lunch for no cost. So if you want transportation, know that there's going to be a press conference, and there's also going to be an opportunity to speak with legislators, and members are encouraged to make their own appointments. So please enjoy visiting with one another. We'll be back at about, yes, Marlene.
You have to explain to people what Lobby Day is. I don't think everybody knows.
Lobby Day, thank you, Marlene. Lobby Day is an opportunity to go to Albany and to lobby your legislators in person. And so we've got Steve Otis, Shelley Mayer. You can lobby them here, but if there's particular legislation that, why are you laughing? Because they're not here, or? Well, we'll still keep them posted. There are opportunities also to speak with legislators on particular legislation where there are sponsors there, and you can make appointments at their office to go speak to them. You can go on the League of Women Voters website to find the name of legislators, and if you're having any difficulty finding who you want to get in touch with us, and we'll help guide you through that. So we'll be back in about, 20, 25 minutes, and Sal and I will be coming around. Please enjoy visiting with one another, take a look at the books, and we'll see you very soon.
Okay, I know we're all anxious to hear George, but first, a little business. And I want to thank Beth for organizing this event. I'm sorry? Can't hear me. Is this better? Let's thank Beth. She's a great event organizer. She did 90% of the work. And that's in addition to everything else she does. Okay, but I just want to do a few housekeeping things, league housekeeping things. For membership, the whole system has changed this year. So you can register online. Go to lwv.org, and it's simple. You'll figure it out. You can also go to the State League's website as well to register as a league member, or to our website, or to, I hope, New Rochelle's, Rybrook, Portchester. You can register locally too. But if you're a pen, paper, and check person, you can register, and I have the forms here. So see me after. Secondly, as you know, it's all hands on deck as far as democracy goes. If you saw Brooks and Capehart on the NewsHour last Friday night, they cited the League of Women Voters, and they praised the League for coming out and saying that we are in a constitutional crisis. There's a lot that you can do. The page that we distributed on the table, take a look at that. There are lots of ways that you can contribute to our democracy. George will probably give you a few hints too. I do want to cite our local members who have done a lot for our league. Shout out to Elaine Chapnick, Lois Hertzberg, Anita Absey, Terry Toll, Marlene Colbert. Marlene, do you ever retire? I know. Cindy Dirks, Alice Pernick, and Joe Liberty's Okra Group. The students are members of our league. Katie Dorfus and Judy Silberstein. They've been working on voter registration, on school board elections. Terry did a monolithic job with ERA last year. Katie Dorfus is a CPA working full-time. She's our treasurer. Okay. Now you can work on treasurer stuff now rather than on tax returns. Judy Silberstein, she's really the glue that keeps everything together. She's been our webmaster for so long. You can thank her for all the great messages you get. However, Judy could use some assistance. She and Ned have moved to Connecticut, and she can train anybody that wants to give her a hand. And she learned everything from scratch. So, it's doable. Don't be afraid. Okay, and last but not least, if you're a league member, don't forget to participate in the consensus. There are 2 issues going on. Judy just sent out a reminder yesterday on what they are. You can sign up for a Zoom information session before you register your consensus on May 15th. The information session is April 30th, but you have to pre-register for it. And you'll learn more about the issues that you're asked to do a consensus for. They are briefly ranked choice voting and nonpartisan primaries. And the second one is about the approval process for voting machines. Okay, that's all I have to say. So.
We're going to pick a raffle winner now. Louise is going to put her hand into the Love Your Food bag and pick out the winner.
I hope I don't pull out my husband. Okay. And the number is 242204. Anybody have that number?
Is this Katie Dorpus? Is that Katie? Is this our CPA who won the raffle?
She deserves it.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Oh, great, thanks. Thank you very much. I want to mention a PS to Louise's, I'm good, and then I'll get George on. So I'm just going to say a couple of things about the litigation that Louise was referencing about K-Part. There was an order from the court yesterday in League of Women Voters et al. There were other organizations, v. Trump, that had to do with the executive order that would supersede the SAVE Act. And it's a 120-page order. I saw it come out last night. I didn't read it. But there were excerpts in there, and really most essentially, the court is saying that the Constitution does not delegate the authority for federal elections to the chief executive. It is delegated to Congress, right? So they have put a stay on major portions of the executive order, and it will go to court. There were certain aspects of it, apparently, that were not touched. But I think we should be very proud that the League of Women Voters got out in front on this, didn't waste a minute, and they're doing what they can to preserve democracy. And we'll look forward to hearing what George has to say about that. George Latimer, probably for most of the people in this room, needs no introduction. George has served our region over the past decades in Westchester County. He's been a state assemblyman. He's been a state senator. He was our county executive. He's a fellow Mount Vernonite like me. So I know from whence he comes. I'm very proud of coming from Mount Vernon. I think what he has done to capture the respect of all of us is that George speaks the truth. And he shows up, and he listens, and he gets things done. And we are very grateful for that. And with that, I'd like us to give a warm welcome to United States Representative George Latimer.
Well, when you get an introduction like that, you should say, and in conclusion, and of course the hour is a little bit late, but let me say how grateful I am for the invitation to come here. I have had this pleasure a couple of times before in my career, usually when I take on a new job. And as you heard my resume, my public resume being read, you could come to the judgment that this guy just can't hold on to a job. But the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to have recognition for a colleague of mine who has served at two of the levels of government that I have, as a member of the Rye City Council and also as a member of the Westchester County Legislature. She has served us well over the last 12 years. The original plan was that she and I were both going to be term limited in the same year, but I found something else to do, and I know that she's going to have another chapter in her public service as well. But I want Catherine Parker to stand up and get applause from a grateful region. And I think it's worthwhile, all of the electeds who are in the room were recognized, but there are both electeds and people who have served in elective office. And because I've been around for so long, I remember who pretty much all of those are. I would like every person that has served even one term in public office, elected office, to please stand so that we can all say thank you to all of these people who stepped forward. Randy Rabinowitz, stand up. Ann McAndrews, Marlene Colbert, Gary Zuckerman, stand up. David Heiser. I make it a habit of visiting each of the different local governments, and I've been doing my round now in my congressional role, bringing nothing but bad news to the Larchmont Village Board, the Mamaroneck Town Board, Rye City Council, Mamaroneck Village Board, yada, yada, and then, of course, in the whole district. So I'm in Tarrytown and so forth, and in the community boards. And I have to tell you, the feeling that I get going to Washington and then coming back home to my home area, which I love deeply and I spend much time out in, is how much more I respect local government, because the people who serve because they want to do something that they think is worthwhile and good. When a person stands up who served on the Larchmont Village Board or the Rye City Council, there's no compensation in those positions, zero. You are the mayor of Larchmont, you are the mayor of Rye City, no compensation whatsoever. You show up at the Rye Arts Center Gala and the Rye YMCA Gala and the that's all coming out of your own pocket because you care about representing the community that you're in. And when you serve the Mamaroneck Village Board, the Rye Brook Village Board in Portchester, it's not like Washington where you never see the voters come to you to testify. Right there are people at the microphone looking straight at you, expressing how bad your idea is when you're proposing to do something, usually a land use thing. This is the wrong neighborhood for it. There is no right neighborhood for it. But, and so when I go to Washington, and now I'm dealing with people who have reached this level of public service, some of them have served in other positions, some of them have not. But I understand how valuable my experience has been because I was in that city council, because I was in that county legislature, and then all the way up the line, these other jobs. Each one has taught me something that's very important. I have told this story before, and since many of you have heard me speak so many times that you can't, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm 71 now, so I guess I have an age ability to repeat myself and just excuse it to that. But whenever I'm in Orienta Beach and Yacht or across the street at Beach Point Club, I can't help but remark that for 37 years, my father, Stan Latimer, worked at Beach Point Club. He was a maintenance man. I think it was 1947 when he started on the exact first year, and a couple of years into it, they made him head of maintenance, 5 or 6 years, probably about the time I was born. And until he retired in the late 1970s, that's what he did for a living. That was the paycheck that put me through college. That was the paycheck that put food on the table. He would drive up from Mount Vernon and would go there every day to work, and then he'd have to come back sometimes for special events, activities at night. He'd drag his 10, 11, 12-year-old son along to give him company on the ride, and I would look at him slack-jawed as he was doing some impossible thing to put the dance floor together or fix electrical in the last minute. And I realize whenever I'm here that my ability to stand here is because my father came to this very neighborhood and worked like a dog for years so that I could have the opportunity to come to this neighborhood as your county executive or your congressman. And that is an American story. I want to start, and I really don't intend to be here too long, but I know you want me to say some things about what's happening in Washington, which are critically important. But I want to start with a story I've also told a couple of times before, and it goes back to when I was in Midtown Manhattan, 38th and Madison, by happenstance, and I was waiting for a person that I was going to have lunch with, and I had time, and it was a beautiful day, springtime day, if I recall, and I was standing there, and I was kind of jingling coins in my pocket. Most of us don't carry coins anymore, you know, and we barely carry any cash anymore, you know, but we have, you know, the credit cards, which gets us through everything. And as I was standing there, I was doing just what I'm doing right now. You can do this too if you like. And I pulled out what I had in my pocket, and I had 36 cents. I had a quarter, I had a dime, and I had a penny. And if you do the same thing, if you have that, I'm not going to ask you to send it up to the front of the room, don't worry. And I looked at it, and I thought to myself, you know, when I was a kid, having 36 cents in my pocket could have probably gotten me through any social studies exam that I would ever have had. Because when you look at the coinage and who we put on the coinage, they represent the three greatest presidents of the United States who guided us through the three most difficult parts of the American experience. It's only 250 years of that this country has gone from the moment of Declaration of Independence till today. I'm 70, some of you have me beat by a few years. We've lived a third of that time in our lifetime, a third of the total history from the Revolution to this very moment. And when I looked at the coin, and I looked and I saw Washington on the quarter, Lincoln on the penny, and Roosevelt on the dime, having been a student of history, undergraduate, bachelor's in history, which prepares you for really nothing in the world to follow, prepares you to go to grad school, which is what I did. And I thought about, you know, who these people were and what their contribution was in the time and what the nature of the crisis was. Over time, I did get to live in suburban Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, in the area right adjacent to Valley Forge, where they have the historical park. And I recall when people would come into town, I'd give them the tour of the Valley Forge Park, and I'd see the little huts where the Revolutionary soldiers wintered out that winter when the Revolutionary Army almost fell apart. And by the personality and the strength of George Washington, did he hold together that army, which over time, was in a short period of time, and with the help of France, was able to defeat the greatest military force on the planet of that day, the Great British Army, with the Hessians as support. How did George Washington do it? How did he start the procedures of the country where he could have been a king, but he denied being a king, but set up systems with checks and balances, keep that in mind because we'll talk about that before I get off the podium, where he understood as much power and as popularity as had, he showed restraint, and in that restraint helped set up a democracy for years to come. On the penny is Abraham Lincoln, who went through a more tumultuous time than he did. On his way to the White House from Springfield, he was almost assassinated in Baltimore. He gets to the White House, greeted by 7 states that secede from the nation. They didn't even want to hear what he had to say. We're out of here. And he had the greatest constitutional crisis you could imagine. And somehow, through all of the things that happened over 4 years of war, where your sons went away and never came home, where you heard about the Battle of Shiloh, where the Union lost, or Chancellorsville, or our generals weren't good, and Robert E. Lee was winning them, and you thought perhaps the South was going to win, and they were going to be able to keep their special institution of slavery intact, and we would have a completely different world had the North and the Union not succeeded. And Abraham Lincoln had the strength of person to be able to sit in the White House hearing good and bad reports from the front, not for 1 year, or not for 6 months, not for a year and a half, but through 1862, 1863, 1864, years until finally we won, and within 1 week, he was assassinated. And then consider Franklin Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt had 2 great crises to face. He faced the Depression, country, you know, ill-nourished, ill-housed, unemployed. No one thought that there were anything that we could do to break out of the Depression. It's a worldwide depression. And he came in and he said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And somehow he rallied a nation. And in his first 100 days, he didn't destroy departments. He created departments that stabilized our banking industry, put people to work through the Civilian Conservation Corps, and gave people hope that you could pull us out of this. I think most of us understand economically it took the Second World War to really complete the revivification of America's economy. But he got America to stand up and walk again, and he himself could not stand up and walk. What these men accomplished is amazing. And they weren't perfect men. You know, Washington was seen as the least intellectual of any of the founding fathers. You know, the Madisons and the Franklins and the Adams, way smarter. Jefferson, better writers, better in so many ways. Abraham Lincoln was thought of as some backwoodsman. You know, he was from the West, which is what Illinois was in those days. And Franklin Roosevelt was considered a dilettante. And those who knew that he was crippled and would never walk again. How could he become president? You know, he got elected because his cousin was president, and he got elected on his name. And yet each of these men rose to the occasion. So when I think about the crisis that we're in right now, people will ask me, they'll jump to the finish line. What's going to happen? I don't know. Is it going to work out? Yes. Yes, it's going to work out. Why is it going to work out? Because good people will do what we always do, which is we will find a way to stand up, be articulate, be caring, be forceful, and I could yell to prove that I'm forceful, and we will do what Americans have done every time before we faced a crisis. We will not shrink. We will not start attacking each other and finding fault in each other. We'll find a way to get together and move forward. Because what we face is a significant crisis. Has it reached the constitutional crisis that equals what happened with the Civil War? No. In my lifetime, I thought we were very close to a similar crisis in 1974 during the Nixon presidency with the tapes and what was happening in the country at that time. It did not manifest itself. My time in Washington, though, is up close and personal. And I have had the pleasure of being the chief executive of this county. I think we did good things with that opportunity. I've represented you in the state senate, and where we voted for marriage equality, where we raised the minimum wage, where we put significant gun control in effect in New York State. In my days in the assembly, I've forgotten, Catherine, what I did in the county legislature so damn long ago. You've done a lot more. You and Jude have done a lot more recently than I can remember what I did back in the day. But now in Washington, we face a moment in which a philosophy is dominant. And that philosophy, under the tag of MAGA, is embodied in this president and in the majority control of each of the two houses. And very simply, this is not a new philosophy. This is a philosophy that did not have dominance in the past, but was always present there, which goes back probably from the beginning of the New Deal through the Great Society and all the years since, which is government should not do so much. We don't want a government that tries to address these problems by spending my money. Leave me alone. Let me do what I can do in the private sector to the maximum of my ability. Reduce regulation, reduce government employees, reduce what they might call fraud, waste, and corruption. I want a different America. And if you read Project 2025, it was all laid out. This should be no surprise to anybody. It was all identified in Project 2025. And if we didn't think he was kidding, you know, not to compare them, but it's like, was Adolf Hitler kidding in Mein Kampf? If you read Mein Kampf, now we all grew up after that experience, but if you read Mein Kampf, you'd say, my God, he wrote this in the 20s? Who didn't know what he would do in the 30s if he became Chancellor of Germany? He was there. And Project 2025 puts it there. On one level, you know, the common question I get is, how's it going? How does it feel to be in Congress? And I always I did it here when we were kind of talking informally. There's two realities to it. I walk into the House of Representatives, and I can't believe that I'm there. I am a few feet away from the podium where Franklin Roosevelt gave the Day of Infamy speech, which I've seen on clips 100 times. I remember seeing on TV when I was a little kid after the death of President Kennedy. Lyndon Johnson stood at that podium and tried to give Americans a sense that we would move on from this tragedy of the assassination of a young, vibrant president. And you looking at the seats where there's no assigned seats in the House. You sit wherever you want. Democrats generally cluster one side of the chamber, Republicans on the other. But I look at seats, and I don't know that Jack Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, George Bush the father, a host of people that have served in the House didn't sit in that seat at some point in time or not. And I'm Stan Latimer's kid, the maintenance man's kid, who's here. And I get, for the 2 years that I have the seat, and the future will tell what happens after that, I get a chance to sit here. I walk out of my office in the Longworth building at night, and I walk over to get onto the Metro to go where I'm staying at my sister's house, and I see the Capitol Dome lit at night. I've walked through the streets of Albany after hours. I've walked out of the county office building after hours. The Rice City Council, to go to get in my car to go home, and I, you can't believe it. On that level of it, it's amazing. But I didn't walk into a government, which I had to learn, and I haven't learned it yet. Not in 4 months do you learn the size and the scope of the federal government. We could have conversations about county government, and I could probably answer almost any question with an encyclopedic knowledge of what the Department of Community Mental Health is doing, what the Department of Emergency Services is doing, how the Office of Women is functioning, because I lived that in my whole complete life up until 4 months ago. The federal government is vast, and it would take a long time. And I think sometimes we forget how good Nita Lowey and Elliot Engel were. And Nita's gone, and Elliot is, he's hanging in there, but it's been a rough go for him. They served 32 years, and they gave us encyclopedic knowledge and representation. And whether we liked everything they did, or we thought their personality was this or that, or whatever it was, I understand now how much they accomplished when one became head of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the other became head of the Appropriations Committee. That's what we had representing Westchester County. That kind of weight and power and strength. I'm a long way away from that, my friends. I got a lot to learn for whatever length of time I'm there. The timing, though, is not ideal to learn a form of government when it is under the process of being deconstructed. And that's what we're seeing. The philosophy expressed in Project 2025 is being implemented by this president, and he's doing it with a certain sense of bravado, as if Americans have long waited for this great moment. The election of 2024 was clearly a victory for Donald Trump. It was not a victory for MAGA positioning. When he won Michigan, Elisa Slotkin won the Senate seat right below him. When he won North Carolina, the Democrats swept all of the statewide races right below him. When he won the state of Arizona, Ruben Gallego won the Senate seat in the next ballot line down. There was no, I've seen Ronald Reagan win 49 states. Maybe in this room we all saw Nixon win 49 states. Nobody denies those were mandates. Those were clearly nationwide mandates. That's not what this is. He won an election. I won 18 of them. He won an election. I grant him his victory. But that is not a mandate to do the things he's doing. And I would certainly argue that his base wants that, but his base was not enough alone to win, because his base didn't win in 2020 against Joe Biden, which was also a legitimate election, one that he did not win. And in that particular case, the delta, the people that put him back into the White House, are those people in the middle who may have voted for Biden 4 years ago and may have voted for Obama a few years before that. And most of those individuals wanted to see improvement in their lives, as I judge it and as I understand the polling data. Improvement in their economics primarily, because of the inflation that has made the cost of consumer goods rise over the course of time. We came through a pandemic. That pandemic created all kinds of problems for us. The society shut down in parts of the country. We had supply chain problems that came out of that. Have we forgotten? That's 3 and 4 years ago. That's what we came out of. And we had economic dislocation because of that. Now what we have is using that moment and the election of 2024 to destroy the Department of Education, eliminate the USAID program, which provides aid across the world, to take the Department of Health and Human Services and devastate it with thousands of employee cuts, professional people who knew what they were doing in a host of different public policy areas, to reduce dramatically the SNAP program, which provides food supplements for people that are hungry. And you can say whatever you want. We're in Westchester County, wealthiest county in the state, or second wealthiest county in the state, and there's still people on food lines when the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force opened shop on a Tuesday afternoon on Mamaroneck Avenue. And there are them, those exist all over this county. To destroy the EPA. The EPA and the standards is why that sound is cleaner today than it was in 1987. The regulations that were put in that required the county to spend more money on sewer treatment and non-point source pollution. If there was no standards created and enforced by the federal government and the EPA, and we went on our merry way where we were in 1987, the hypoxia out in that sound, over the 38 years of my time in public office, we'd be looking at, you know, the equivalent of the Dead Sea. It has been time and time and time again where there is a legitimate need for change and reform. There's a legitimate need to figure out how you're going to cut waste. What never comes out in public is my prior corporate career that existed before I was in public office. They see the multiple years in office, and you know, I'm a lifelong pol. And I've devoted a lot of years to that. But I spent 20 years working for subsidiaries, Nestle, ITT, involvement with some other corporations on behalf of the corporation I worked for. And I had an understanding of how corporations work from the inside out. And when a corporation is going to make a major decision, such as shutting Social Security offices, they don't do it by meat axe. They have an analysis. Generally, you call up McKinsey, Booz Allen, you bring somebody in from the outside, pay them a lot of money, they do the analysis, you get a report, senior management reviews it, tweaks it, they announce it, and then they implement it. And you have time to be able to determine how you're going to handle this. That's not what happened here. We're not even in office 4 months. When that Social Security hearing office closes in White Plains, if you want to challenge a ruling of the Social Security Agency administration on your behalf or the behalf of a relative, instead of going to White Plains to have it before an administrative law judge, you have to go to New Haven, Connecticut. New Haven, Connecticut. Albany is for a different part. And then the people up in Monticello that would go to White Plains have to go into Lower Manhattan. It's purposeful. It's a purposeful disruption to try to make you say, what am I going to do? They cut my benefits by $200, $100. All right. But they'll say they're not cutting Social Security. Similar thing happening in the Veterans Administration. Back to Social Security, I am a baby boomer. A few others in this room might be. 10,000 of my cohorts are turning 65 every day. When I heard the statistic, I said, that can't be true. It turned out to be true. 10,000 every day, and you're going to cut the workforce of the Social Security Administration? What are you saying? You're saying, we're just going to mess with you. We're going to mess with you. We're going to see maybe you don't take your benefits the first year. Maybe you realize, as Elon Musk said, that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. Tell that to Stan and Loretta, who in their later years, for which Social Security is one of the bedrock revenue streams that kept them going to the end. They had others, a couple of others, not many, blue-collar people their whole life. Franklin Roosevelt's commitment was honored in the life of my parents. And this man, the wealthiest man in the world, is going to tell you that it's a Ponzi scheme. That's the philosophy that's underneath these cuts. And that is not a matter of debating public policy where I say we could go this far, but I could meet you here. You want to go here, we could meet there. This is a whole different way of looking at government. And that's what makes this the crisis that it is, because at the moment, they have the power that's necessary to implement much of this. Not all of it, but much of this. On the legislative side, the majorities in both houses are Republican majorities. You know, they're not my father's Republican Party, so to speak. It's not Paul Ryan, or John Boehner, or even Dennis Hastert in the Speaker's chair. They're implementing exactly what they're told to do by the White House. And the one thing I love, this does appeal to my marketing background, because that's what I did in the private sector. They come up with really catchy names for really crummy bills. The SAVE Act. Let us safeguard our, come on. This is Stop All Voter Engagement Act. That's what it really is. It's a voter suppression act. The League of Women Voters stood up strong and loud about it, made some extremely good points. We did a press conference in mid-February here. We had a Zoom meeting that night, and certainly we laid out the philosophical case. Didn't change the votes in the House. All the Republicans voted for it. That was enough to pass it. A couple of Democrats crossed over, but we had the bulk of the Democrats in a no mode, and I'm expecting the Senate to filibuster the bill, as they did a year ago, to make sure the bill doesn't pass. But if that was the only bad bill, Lake and Riley, fix our forests. Fix our forests. Sound like a good bill? Opposed by the League of Conservation Voters, opposed by the Sierra Club. It's an anti-environmental bill. In fact, there's a loophole in it. Ellen Weininger probably saw it when she read the bill that allows people to do logging in the national forests. That's what fix our forest means. If you remember, the president was critical of California, saying they don't manage their ground very well. Meaning what? Meaning that logging should go to private organizations. That's what Fix Our Forest does. They had a bill called Born Alive. They were trying to go after what happens in those rare third trimester abortions. But the authority in it would extend across all abortions. And it's the same thing with Lake and Riley. Lake and Riley on its surface was, we need to go after those who commit heinous crimes who are here as undocumented individuals. We have those laws in place already. You restate those laws in Lake and Riley, and then you go on to open up deportation for crimes that are not only not violent, but not major crimes. Jaywalking, loitering, become a basis for deportation, because that's what they want to do. Now we have, I'm on two committees, Foreign Affairs and Small Business. And the Small Business Committee, I've had plenty of experience with local chambers of commerce. Larchmont, New Rochelle, Mamaroneck, Rye City, the Portchester Rybrook one, and all across the county. And I've heard a lot about what the needs are of small businesses. If I had to summarize it, and some of you are involved in those organizations, number one issue, access to capital. Access to capital. Small businesses need to have capital, and possibly the number two is expertise in order to manage a business. You have an idea, you can construct this business, you're making muffins, and you can sell them, or you can clean houses, and you have a group of people that can clean houses with you. You got a small business here, but you need expertise and you need capital to run the thing. We have two issues that have been raised now that are serious concerns for small businesses. The impact of tariffs, which have been inconsistently established and inconsistently applied, so you don't know what you have that's going to be tariff eligible, and you have to price your products on that basis. And number two, the threat of mass deportation, which in some industries are going to devastate the workforce. You're going to go through kitchens of restaurants and gardening companies, agriculture businesses outside, and you're going to have instability in those small businesses. We're talking in the committee about one issue, every single meeting, over-regulation of small businesses, criticizing the Biden administration's regulations. They interpret that to be the most important small business issue when you have tariffs, when you have the potential workforce destabilization, and then the overarching issue of access to capital. So what I'm watching in the legislature are very intelligent people who are not serious about legislating. They're not serious about looking at problems. They're there to implement a plan. And when they implement that plan with legislation to go along with executive actions that are happening. Now, I mentioned about Washington and the guardrails. George Washington was so popular that he didn't have to accept any guardrails, and how many individuals would have had the strength of personality to say, no, I'm going to restrict what I'm doing here because it's right for the future. Most people would say, you can give me more power, I'll take it. It's like having a dish of desserts on the table. If none of you are going to eat it, I'll eat them all. And in that mindset, you now have the exact opposite of George Washington. You have a person who doesn't care about the guardrails of society. If you're a major law firm, we're going to figure out how to punish you. If you're a major university, we're going to figure out how to punish you. And to boot, the people that are in my base, they don't really like Harvard. You know, they don't really know who Skadden Arps or Paul Weiss is. You know, white shoe law firms in New York City, nah, I don't like them either. Stick it to them. And you drop guardrails with everything you do. You open the door for tyranny. Is tyranny here yet? No, it's not here yet. But are you opening the door to it? I went to two commemorations yesterday. I said this at the table. Yom HaShoah, lunchtime yesterday in the Garden of Remembrance in White Plains. And then in the evening at 6:30, there was a service at St. Gregory's, the Enlightener Church, Armenian Church, right at the foot of North Street, opposite Maplemore, where they commemorated the Turkish genocide of the Armenian people, 1915, 1923. Two separate commemorations in the same day, and in each case, people talked about how insidious it was that one side could turn a group of people into the other, and once they become the other, they lose humanity, and then you can begin to deal with them in a subhuman way. Ultimately, to put them in gas chambers or to shoot them dead. In the Armenian genocide, not as well known in this area, people went inside the churches of Armenia for protection. They left their homes and they congregated in the church, and the church was burned down and everybody killed inside a church. That was the respect for attachment to religious faith. But it began in a small, incremental way. When a person is picked up and put on a plane to El Salvador and put in a prison and there's no legal recourse, and then it comes out the person is a legitimate American citizen, but there's no recourse, tough darts. The message is, you're not safe. There's no protection for you if we want you. Now, I'm not saying that Kilmar is innocent of all kinds of things. The way the system works is you use the court of law to determine guilt or innocence, and then a court orders incarceration if there's been a proper adjudication of that with a trial of peers if necessary. That's the due process promised us in the Fifth Amendment. I hear a lot about the Second Amendment. I want to hear a little bit more about the Fifth Amendment. Right to trial. And if you can do it to him, then you can do it to you because of some reason, whatever that reason is. And since I don't have to report to the court, and you break down those guardrails, then you make a step closer to where you have to be. The reality is right now is that our electorate is divided, and people have different points of views based on their own philosophy. I see it, have it in my own family. I bet you have it in your family. And I don't assume that because somebody disagrees with me that they're evil. And sometimes they may not be wrong. Sometimes I have to look at things that I do or say and determine if I'm on the right path or not. But when we get to the point in the society where people put their hand over their ears and they say, I don't want to hear anything. Don't tell me any facts. I am part of this team, and this is what this team wants to do. And by God, we're going to do it. Then I start to see in my mind the path that leads to the Nuremberg Stadium where one person yells and waves his fist and everybody goes Sig Heil. Because they're not listening. They're not doing the responsibility of citizenship that goes along with the guarantees of protections of citizenship. The League of Women Voters is an organization structured around the responsibilities of citizenship, that you should know and understand what the issues are, and you should know it and understand who the people that seek election power are. And out of that knowledge, you will make whatever decision you make, but you have responsibilities as a citizen. So you know your rights as a citizen, but not your responsibilities as a citizen. And as we move away from that into I'm on Team A, and that's all I want to know, then we move closer to a dark day. I am not pessimistic, I am optimistic, and I believe at the end of the day that we can communicate with our fellow Americans, not so much that we're good and they're bad, but that going in the direction of tyranny is never the right strategy. That we can show respect and debate on a continuum of right to left, but not impose tyranny in order to impose the agenda of one side or the other. And I believe if we reach out to our fellow citizens and have those conversations, we can make progress with them. But it's going to take time. Every major crisis that I saw in those 36 cents took 3, 4, 5, 6 years to resolve, not 4 months. And the angst, I got an email today from some woman, you need to stand up for democracy. I'm going to write her back and tell her what I've been doing. But the frustration belies an adult understanding of how long it takes. We've all raised teenage children. My God, how long does it take for that teenager to get it? They get it. Mine is 40 years old now, 2 kids of her own. She's got it. She's there. 16, nope, couldn't understand why. That's fine. She's got to worry about her child who's approaching 16 now. And I think in some ways that is what we have to do. I believe your responsibility as an individual is very simple. Go to a rally if you want to go to a rally. Certainly write me or call me if you want to write me or call me. Stop me on the street at the block parties, which are starting next month. Allison May's got a long list of them. She'll send them to me and I'll show up. Right, Allison? Right. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that. And we'll have, and they'll have a whole set. They have the George Latimer County Legislator Certificate, the George Latimer Assemblyman Certificate. Now it's like Cracker Jacks. You get the complete set now, the federal one. There's nothing else after this. There's no intergalactic legislature that I can be in. But The important thing is that you reach out to people in your world to open a discussion. That's all, a discussion. And you know who in your world are solidly on the other side and don't want to hear it. Don't insult them or waste your time. Accept the fact that they don't see it your way. But you know the people that are legitimately in the middle, and they're worried. They're not just worried about, you know, what's happening in the nation. They're worried about their own interests, their own concerns. Open a dialogue with them. We'll communicate the things that we're trying to do to make a case for what rational government looks like. We've just made a case, and they're making it right now. I'm gone from county government. They're making a case right now into Ken Jenkins. But Judah and Catherine and their colleagues, we've made a case for what rational government in Westchester County looks like. And Catherine served under my predecessor, who was a very intelligent guy, different philosophy of government. We opened up the Spring Ridge pools. We fixed the New Rochelle Family Court, and well, we created the New Rochelle Family Court, and we fixed Memorial Field. We did things we said we would do, and we did it rationally. And we didn't raise your taxes for the last 6 years. It's doable at the county, it's doable at the federal level. But you have to interact with people, because right now, the only interaction they're getting is from the limited media that we have, and it's advocacy media. It's not the media that I remember as a young man that was truly objective. At the end of the day, I don't know what my role will be in all of this in the long run. This is a challenge. I have jokingly said to my friends, this is Indiana Jones's last crusade. Last. I got the hat on, I got the whip. There's a tunnel, there's the snakes. I don't like it too much, but you know, we'll try to get to the point where some rationality comes back. And as I've said a couple times in the speech, I do not mean that points of view that I disagree with are intrinsically unworthy of debate and discussion. Not what I'm seeing being done now. I'll close with what I said about Elon Musk. Elon Musk posited that empathy is the great weakness of Western civilization. That's what he said. It was in a podcast with Joe Rogan. And he went on to say that, sides weaponize empathy, which is consistent with the guy who said, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. So in my speech on the floor, I pointed that out, about what he said about empathy. And then I said, that's one point of view from the richest man in the world. Let me posit what Matthew said in Matthew 25. You don't need to be Christian to appreciate what was said in Matthew 25. Lord, when did I see you hungry and gave you food? When did I see you thirsty and give you drink? When did I see you naked and clothe you? When did I see you sick and minister to you? When did I see you in prison and come to visit you? When were you a stranger and I welcomed you in? And the Lord will say to them, when you did this for the least of my brothers, you did this unto me. That's empathy. That's not the weakness of Western civilization. That's the bedrock of Western civilization. And that bedrock is manifest through governments that see need, try to address it, pool resources and say, yes, we need to do things in the public domain to help those who have little or less, because we want a rising tide society that works for all of us. That's what we believe, and that's what we're going to achieve through this difficult moment. And I thank you for your time.
There you go. This is why we love George Latimer. I have for George something from Harper's Weekly that was published on March 25th in 1865. And this is called The Triumph of New York, the procession passing around the south end of the park. E pluribus unum, one destiny, one constitution, one country.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
We actually have the room for a little while longer. I want to invite Catherine Parker and Judah Holstein to come up and George to join them for your questions. George certainly covered a lot but there may be questions that you haven't covered, and we're so fortunate to have them here. If anyone needs to leave, we understand. If you could leave behind the camera, that would be wonderful. And thank you so much for coming. So anyway, let me turn it over. I'm going to stand up here. I think I can, the camera will attempt to capture the sound of your questions, but it's possible that I may repeat them if it doesn't come through loudly enough. So who has a question? Laura.
You know, you brought up, where is the lack of critical thinking, you know? Saying, just do as I say, not as I do. And I'll bring up something that I think Hillary Clinton talking about the deplorables was a terrible thing to say. I mean, I think that was a gift to Donald Trump and his team. You know, but critical thinking, getting back to that, how do we...
I'll make an opening comment, and I'll tie it to my colleagues here. It comes down to respecting that there are different points of view that you need to listen to as you make public policy, because you respect the other people involved. Catherine, Judah, and 15 of their colleagues represent the body, the legislative body of the county government. For 7 years, I had the opportunity to be the county executive, the other branch of government. I had been in that body for 13 years. I had chaired that body, but I had a different function in it. And I don't know that there was ever a day in which I ordered a county legislator to do anything or threatened a county legislator. I tried to cajole them a lot, and sometimes we'd have some, heated discussions about certain things. What you have in Washington right now is the political power that Donald Trump has in his party is, incredible. The base of the Republican Party loves Donald Trump in a way that an elected official in lower office, in the House or the Senate, fear that Donald Trump's opposition could cost him their seat. And Elon Musk was very straightforward about it. He said that he would help fund a primary against any Republican that didn't back the administration's plans. So as much as I'd like to say, oh, well, there's critical thinking, and I'm sure there's some that don't, and there's some people on the majority side of the aisle in both houses that truly believe that what's happening is good, I think there are some that are thinking, maybe I'm risking everything by breaking with the president on these issues. I mean, how does Bobby Kennedy get to be House HHS? No planet is that guy capable of that job. And there's a lot of questions about Pete Hegseth, but is anybody asking them? No, because there's a certain fear factor. And I would just share one comment that was made to me by a Republican congressman. I don't really have deep friendships across the aisle, but I went to one of them to say basically what you said about critical thinking. I said, don't you guys see this stuff? I said, can't you speak up? And his response to me was, in a low voice, what happened to Liz Cheney?
Go ahead. So I'll just make an additional comment on that. I don't have nearly the depth of experience that George does. So. But, in regards to the comment that George made about Elon Musk, we did see Elon Musk spend about $21 million in Wisconsin just a month ago and didn't win. So like George, I do have some optimism. If we can go out and reach the people who are not activated, pull them from the sidelines, make sure they're there. We have the power to impact even big money, even Elon Musk. And that, I know you guys are preaching to the choir, but we just got to keep at it because we can make a difference. We can make a difference.
And I will just add, I'm not sure if this is on, yes it is. I've been in the county legislature for 12 years, and certainly in my 12 years, I was working on a lot of legislation. In my last year as I leave, given what's happening in Washington, the most critical area that I feel I need to really devote my time to is speaking with my constituents and going out into the community to make sure that they are hearing about the real and the positive things that are happening in government that's there for everybody. And George is not that far away from having been our county executive. I give him all the credit in the world for choosing to focus on things that really make a difference in people's lives, whether it's the free buses during the summer that we did for a number of years, whether it was giving veterans, helping to create a system where veteran businesses would be considered for county contracts, or whether it was giving a tax, alleviating some tax for those veterans. We were looking at ways, and George really, there was nobody at the county that was doing this as much as George Latimer, really focusing on the day-to-day. How do we make that difference to the people that are living day-to-day? And just as a point of context, Westchester is larger than 6 states in the country. We're over 1 million people. There are 6 states that are not. And that's really saying something when your government is working so hard to remember that, yeah, it's great that we have low unemployment, but there are still people that need help with employment, and economic development is the way to get that path. So again, my point is that has to just be communicated, because the newspapers aren't doing that. The people are getting their media, in different ways. We just have to keep telling the truth about what government does and can do, and does very well in our neck of the woods.
This one's for
Speak
George.
real loud.
Maybe I'll stand up. This one is for George. Do you think the allegations of the Labor Board whistleblower are credible? And if they are, why isn't this a huge deal? Like
Are the
national
allegations of the
emergency.
Labor Board whistleblower valid?
Meg, just repeat what they are for everybody's benefit, so they can connect it.
A man who worked at the National Labor Board sent some committee in the federal government an affidavit saying, I worked there, and some Doge people came in and they shut down, they turned off our security, and they sent out a huge spike of information, like a library's worth of confidential information. And immediately after, a IP address from Russia tried to get in, kept trying to get in, but we are set up so that can't happen. And, so far, I know that some of Congress, 50 Congress people sent a letter to somebody saying, do something about this. And can you tell us more?
As much as we know. This broke during the 2 weeks that we have been out of session. So when I go back on Monday, I expect in our first conference, like when you guys have a caucus, I expect this is going to come up as a major issue. The sound of it is credible, because we've heard somewhat similar things in other departments where Doge, or Dog E, as I like to call it, come in with no understanding of the operation that they're supposed to be evaluating, and they just make these mass kinds of situations. And I think there was more of a malevolent concern about getting access to information so they could they could grab sensitive information on people and then use that going forward. So that doesn't surprise me at all. The whistleblower, really has nothing to gain in the way they're describing this action. It isn't like, give me my job back that I've lost it. But the problem, Meg, is that we will probably have what's called a shadow hearing on it, meaning the minority side of the aisle will have a hearing. It won't be a formal governmental hearing. Therefore, we can't subpoena anybody to come in. And if you can't subpoena the people to come in, then you're going to be talking to people who are going to come in who will give you what they can tell you, but not the people who are actively involved right now, because they risk their job by doing so. It will help highlight the issue. It'll take, I believe, a court case to do that. And what I don't know, what I expect I'll find out on Monday when we have our meeting, is what combination of entities with standing will be in court over it. And that, we get it to a federal judge who will require some sort of cease, desist, restoration effort while they're listening to testimony, when each side submits papers, and then we'll see how it goes. It's frustrating because this story is probably multiplied in any number of areas that we don't know about. This one happened to hit the public light. But this is what deconstruction of a government is. It is not just we want to reduce the number of people who are doing something. We want to destroy the function itself. And I think a lot of it, certainly with Musk, is that he doesn't believe in government regulation. You know, he wants to be able to have his businesses and his interests operate in an untrammeled fashion. And so anything that would restrict him and people like that, you know, that cohort of people who have major businesses, major interests, they just don't want to have it restricted by bureaucrats and or the deep state. I argue the deep state is what grabs the guy and takes him to El Salvador. That's the deep state. But they'll argue the deep state are people who are lifelong professionals who provide, I'm looking out the window all the time, I think of the EPA, who provide professional analysis of water quality, and they're just gone now because of that. So I would say I expect we'd be in court, would be the immediate action on it, and probably a shadow hearing to highlight some of these things for the press.
In the back.
This is a money question. If we're so inclined to give money, aside to your campaign, which of course we all will,
Thank you, Penny.
where does money help the most? I mean, I'm thinking solicitations every
Yeah, I
day
know.
from guys.
Can you repeat the question up here?
Yeah, I'll repeat.
Is the Democratic Party going to help you?
Okay, what Penny asked is about the constant requests that we get for money. Has anybody not gotten a constant request for money from political sources? Let me say this, if you get them from me, just delete them. Because I'll tell you how, just as a brief anecdote, how it works. You contract with some company that generates these things automatically. And I don't even see them before they go out. And guys stop me on the street and say, oh, you're always asking me for money. And I'm looking, I'm going to ask you for any money. Then, oh, yeah. So in principle, you know, and you wouldn't have this if there wasn't this unbelievably expensive reality to running campaigns. When I ran a county legislative campaign, they're more expensive now than they were when I was there. But I ran a campaign one year for about $15,000. There's another time I had maybe a $25,000 campaign. That ain't the way the county board is doing it now. And if I told them how much it cost me to run for, you know, the level I'm at now, it's like, how do you raise that money? Well, you don't raise it easily. But in terms of where you would give money to, obviously, it's a personal thing from each individual. The first thing I would say is look at those organizations that are advocating outside of candidates running for office. Now, horrors, you're just hearing a candidate say, don't give it to the candidate. Not yet, right? The campaign's still a little ways away. But if you believe in Planned Parenthood, give it to Planned Parenthood. If you believe in the League of Women Voters, give it to the League of Women Voters, Penny, because you have a greater sense of faith that money in the short term is going to be used to advocate in the direction that you believe in. There'll come a time when these campaigns start to become more mature, and certainly from the federal level, once we get through the new year. Now, everybody's going to tell you we got to raise money every quarter. I do, and you know, if I pick up the phone and call you, it's probably because you're on a list of resources that are such that you give all the time and can give all the time. But if your ability to give is limited, and you're going to want to use your money for the greatest good and effect, I would say that. Now keep in mind, this year you've got county legislative races and county executive races. And I would look at those races first, because those people need to be able to run this year, and they're talented people. And it always irked me when I was a county legislator that the federal level kept horning in on my time to raise money. But the need for money is unbelievable and open-ended. So give it to issue-oriented groups in the short term, and give it to some of the people running in the local races right now. Hold your fire. If you have a limited amount of money to donate, hold your fire till you get to the new year, and we're focused in '26 on the federal level and the state level as well, and we'll see what kind of races Steve and Shelley have at that time.
The one thing I'd like to add in terms of the League of Women Voters New York State Ed Fund, the education fund, is 100% tax deductible. The League of Women Voters can have this program on LMC Media once a month for free. All not-for-profits in our area can have that. I may need to hire camera people to go out into the community to be able to communicate your thoughts to people. My hope about this program is that even if it's very short segments, I can go to Jane Eney's office, for example, and see what it's like in her office and have her speak. It could be really any project. The poll worker that I'm going to interview, is in his 90s. He was in the he was the director of NYC in the Lindsay administration, and I'm going to need to hire a cameraman for that. And so what I'm hoping is that through this programming, this is what democracy looks like, which of course is more than voting. It's not only free speech, it's we're creating a tapestry, and we are all the threads in here creating that beautiful tapestry. And if we can create an example that can go on a YouTube channel that inspires other people, that's our way of contributing to preservation of democracy. So it's one thing to think about. Anyway, who else would like to ask a question? Yes. Luis Perez. I recognize you in more ways than one.
Well, I'm going to speak for a lot of people because so many people in this room have come up to me and they've voiced, anxiety, particularly about what's going on at the federal level, but, what can we do? George is going to vote, the way we feel. And sorry, George, but I tell them, well, keep calling his office and emailing him. Tell him how you feel. He does have colleagues in the House. So, George, what would you say? How can people get engaged to help this moment in time in our democracy?
Well, it always comes down to, Louise, the way, what a person feels they can do first and what they like to do. And, we have political campaigns, some people are willing to canvass door to door, some want to make phone calls, some don't want to do that, they'd rather postcard. It really comes down to a matter of personal choice. But I would say is this, what I said before in my comments about identify people in your world who are in the middle, as much as you can assess how they feel about these things. Open an ongoing dialogue with them, because the job here is to try to persuade people like that to see the world through the lenses that we have. That is not as dramatic as going to a rally. By all means, go to a rally. Hold up a sign and, state how you feel. It feels better when you have to do that. But those rallies have a purpose, but those rallies do not necessarily move the people that are the difference on a particular issue or, ultimately in terms of the way they support what's happening in Washington. So the frustrating part of it is that the things that matter the most are not the things that are most gratifying, And if I argue about the, what's happened with Kilmer as one example, that probably doesn't move the people in the middle of the electorate. It's the cost of what they buy in the store from tariffs that'll move them, or it's the Social Security of the veterans or the Medicaid that'll move them. So we've got to deal with what it is that a person feels they want to do to express their feelings. They can be involved through the league, through any other organization on areas of public policy. There are environmental groups here that are under the gun now, and a person can express the way they feel through that. But the next round of elections are a ways away. And the ability to say, let's get together and let's, do postcards for Georgia 7 where we could pick up a seat, that time isn't now yet. And this is what I said before, and I talked about having to have stamina and perseverance over an extended period of time. There isn't anything that I can do this afternoon that will turn the tide. It's what I do every afternoon for the next 16, 18 months that will matter. And I do think this is a moment where people, frankly, who haven't been that engaged in the political process, get engaged, and they haven't been paying attention. They didn't pay attention to, this state Senate race or that county legislative race. Now I'm engaged. Okay, well, you're not going to rewrite reality here. You're going to have to work within a system where people have to be persuaded to do something. And it's hard to say that message. When I say it to some people, they don't want to hear it. But I have experience. You got to trust that that's what it's going to take to do that. So be engaged. As I used some examples before, if you're fighting for women's right to choose, put some shoulder to the wheel in an organization like that. If you believe in environmental causes, put your shoulder to the wheel of environmental activist group. If you believe in education, get involved in an education organization so you get that policy involvement and energy and activity. But it's a battle, and it's going to take time.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I think we can take a couple more. Yep.
Can I just, no, it's all good,
Yes,
it's all good.
please. No, Judah, please.
I just, I think it's working. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? But these rallies, his numbers are going down. I was talking to Maria just before. I'm from Eastchester. I live in Eastchester. I grew up in New Rochelle, but I live in Eastchester. You know, it's like the last Republican stronghold, right? And Harrison, there's always going to be the MAGA, the folks who are hypnotized, right, who are never going to give it up. But the people in the middle, the people, even the Republicans in the middle, they're not so loud anymore. They're not making as much noise. They're not out there saying, you know, yay him. It's working. His numbers are going down. The lawsuits are slowing him down. He's backing off on the tariffs. I'm going to tell another story, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, we had Prop 1 and we had Prop 2. Prop 1, the League of Women Voters, Indivisible, everybody rally around, and we won 2-1 about something that we all agree on, right? That we can all feel good about, human rights, right? Equal rights. Prop 2, the county, for a variety of reasons, was a little late to the party getting it on the plate of the League of Women Voters and Indivisible. We didn't have that type of activism. But we all thought, oh, it's a no-brainer. Why not put our 4-year terms, right? It's a no-brainer. This is easy. It lost. You have agency. The League of Women Voters specifically, Indivisible, you have agency. You can make a difference. You are making a difference. Keep it going. And yes, it's going to take a little time till we can sort of backtrack on all these terrible things he's done just in the first 3 months, 4 months. But it's working. Don't lose hope. We can do this. We can do this.
I'll just add one thing, and I'll go back to the first question, which is you brought up the point of critical thinking, and at this point in time, I think to what Congressman Latimer was saying about empathy is what we need to use as our superpower when having conversations with people that don't necessarily look through the same lens that we have. Empathy, to hear them, hear what they are really fearful of, hear what they are really upset about, and try to find some way in order to continue a conversation where it's slow going. It is going to be like in a rugby match, you know, you're in a scrum and you're looking for picking up an extra foot here or there to carry the ball, but that's how we will win. It's just building and creating an openness so that people can come back to recognizing what our great republic was and what really has been at stake in this administration.
Random acts of kindness. I mean, just think when you walk down the street and you're kind of having a crummy day and somebody smiles at you or something happens that is completely unexpected and it turns things around. You don't know anything about that person, they don't know anything about you. But we really do have a lot of power that has nothing to do with politics. We really do. You wanted to ask a question?
I did. First of all, I just want to say that I think the most dangerous immigrant in America, legal or otherwise, is Elon Musk. But my question for George is, you sit on the Foreign Relations Committee. Are we going to abandon Ukraine completely?
Well, you know, the Democratic portion of the House is not. We've spoken up dramatically about support for Ukraine and all of these things. The president promised that he could resolve this war on day one. I think he actually said he could do it before he became president. So now 100 days passed, and the latest thing I've read is Rubio saying that they're about ready to walk away from the table because Vladimir Putin wants Ukrainian land. It's as simple as that. So the question at hand that I can't answer at this stage of the game is Donald Trump going to cave, and when he walks away from the from the table and he can't get the deal, is he now going to say, look, we're not going to help Ukraine? And it will take a proactive effort by the administration to help Ukraine. We historically give the president leeway in foreign affairs, you know, and in this case, you know, if his leeway is not to sell arms to Ukraine or to back them up and show strength, which it may not be, then I'm afraid bad news may be coming. This president seems inured to getting advice from allies. Under normal circumstances, your G7 allies, EU allies would be lobbying you, please, let's stand behind Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. But this is what happens if if Putin gets his way there. If he does, he destabilizes Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, and everybody laughs at America because, you know, our argument about America first, don't spend money in NATO, we're America first, we become America last, the last domino to fall. And when we don't have Canada on our side because we insulted them, you know, then we can look in the mirror and understand why. But I can't tell you that if Trump walks away from involvement, and walking away means no support for Ukraine, that this is going to have a good ending. It doesn't. But the Democrats are in support of continuing support for Ukraine, and I'm going to believe that some Republicans are going to be realpolitik about this, because it was Ronald Reagan that called Russia the evil empire. It was George H.W. Bush that said that Russia was part of the axis of evil. So I just can't believe that every Republican is going to swallow MAGA, which is some friendship with Russia, or realpolitik of let's not have the Third World War, you know, which is what he always threatens. Putin always threatens this stuff, and that we'll back down on it.
One more question, and if you'll bear with me, I just wanted to make an observation before we say goodbye. Yes?
Yeah.
Sorry,
You
guys.
know, we're supposed to have a division of power in our government. Equal, three section. I think Congress, given the political situation, has given up. And I'm sort of relying now on the courts. And I was wondering whether you felt that the decisions that the courts are rendering are going to make any difference.
George, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, what Margaret wanted to know is if the Congress, because of the majority status, it's not the institution of the Congress, it's the majority leadership of the Congress in both houses that are giving up any check and balance on the president, what's the confidence level of relying on the courts? The trial and the appellate level of the courts have a variety of judges appointed by different presidents, and I think to this point they have been adjudicating cases fairly accurately, as much as I can tell as a non-lawyer. The Supreme Court is the question mark, and how many of these cases get to the Supreme Court, how many they agree to take. Now, on the Supreme Court, we pretty much know where Alito and Thomas are, and then you have the three Democrats that stay together pretty much. And you know, to think that that's how we look at the court now, who the Democratic judges, who the Republican judges, that's not the way I grew up thinking about the court. The court were individuals who made individual decisions, and this Eisenhower appointed this guy, but he did something different than what you might have thought he was going to do, and the same was true of, you know, other judges. But I do notice, maybe you notice it too, some interesting dynamics happening with Roberts, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett. And I'm not saying that they are not going to support a lot of the things that he does, but when I look at some of these cases, I think they may be looking more institutionally than merely who put them in the seat. They do have lifetime seats, and that's the whole purpose of having a lifetime Supreme Court judge, that they are free to act on their own individual basis. Margaret, what that means in case A, B, or C, I can't tell you. I've always thought that the Supreme Court would uphold birthright citizenship, because as I read it, as a layman, the 14th Amendment is pretty clear. Now, Alito and Thomas will try to make some argument that, well, it was because of the Reconstruction after the Civil War, it was never intended to apply to me, you know, whatever. They'll come up with some rationale. It reminds me of the way I used to explain myself for why there's a dent in the car when I brought it home to Dad. Well, you know, there was a car and it wasn't really my fault. It's your fault. You had the car, your fault. But so I have some belief that some of these things might actually get a decent hearing at the Supreme Court, but I don't want to go too far with it, because I think in a lot of ways, like when they said that the president is immune from anything that happens during his presidency, that's pretty much giving him a blank check. And I still think on some of these issues, the majority of the court will turn and give him a blank check. But on a couple of them, I think they may stand up, which will be a welcomed surprise in whatever issues they do. But confidence is not what I have. Hope with a mixture of what the immediate past experience is. Confidence, I'm not confident of this, but yeah. I'm hopeful.
Before we go, I want to bring it back to our community and make a connection between the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Who's missing today? Steve Otis and Shelley Mayer. who wanted to be here. Why are they here? Because the budget is late. Why is the budget late? Because of the threats from the federal government not to fund what we're doing. That is having a variety of impacts here, and I'm going to lead up to a question for our county legislators, but I'm the issues specialist for the Environmental Committee for the New York State League. We've been pushing for legislation for a few years now. We've been, pushing for the Better Bottle Bill and also for plastic packaging to get the forever chemicals out of the packaging, and there's a whole array of things that we want to do. The question of whether or not we should have nuclear energy reintroduced. Susan Schwartz has been brilliant behind that. Are we going to have meetings about that? We don't even know whether or not the legislation will ever get anywhere because the legislators work after the budget happens. I mean, we're going to have lobby day, and these bills are in the legislature, but everyone has to take their turn. So my question, I guess, to our county representatives is, how does that cascading, impact of funding and decision-making come down to the county so that you can adjust our expectations of we the people and the job that you can perform? Catherine and then Judah.
Sure. So first of all, the county is absolutely waiting to see what happens with the state budget, because we will be working on our budget in the fall, and we pass our budget in December. And I can assure you that whatever is happening right now will affect us for December. And we know that, as I stated earlier, Westchester County does so much for all of its residents. And when you're talking about food insecurity that was mentioned earlier, when you're talking about economic development and skills training, and when you're talking about affordable housing, when you're talking about energy prices, all of those are conversations that what is happening with the state budget is definitely going to affect us. I will say this, that I have a certain level of confidence in our state and our county. We see what's going on with Washington. I think we can hunker down and we can try to fill in some of the gap of what we know will be not coming our way from the federal government. But I will also say that it could also mean that the county, which has a share with New York State for Medicaid expenses, that we're going to find ourselves with more of that share. And, that could mean another $30 million that we need to find. It's going to be tough. It's a little hard today in April, predicting what we will have to do in the future to make sure, again, that we are providing with those that have the greatest need in the county.
Yeah, I'll just add that, just last week I had a conversation, I'm not sure if they're with Larry Soul, our budget director, about the notion that there are some wins, there are some things that we are anticipating will be here, but we're making contingency plans. I mean, and nobody really knows exactly what to expect, but we're already looking at it to try and be responsible. But I think people need to realize, regardless of party, regardless of anything, right? When the federal government says we're cutting the supply of money, and then, the state doesn't have the money to help fund the things we're doing, and we don't have, ultimately it just moves the tax to a different level, right? I mean, I believe it was announced just today that the first quarter spending at the federal level was actually higher, right? It's not working. So the federal spending is higher, and we may have to figure out how to get that money at our level and every level in between to solve this problem. It is not working, and again, it may be a little bit painful. But I do think it's going to wake people up, and even before 2028, we have an opportunity, to your point, to change who has, not so much here. We're fortunate to have George, right, representing Westchester. We're fortunate to have a supermajority in Westchester County and great state representatives. But across the country, we are going to have to take back some of that control because, and I think it's unfortunately the direction, the consequence is going to be a little bit painful, but I do think it's going to flip back pretty, the pendulum will swing pretty clearly. So,
Want to thank you all for coming. There's going to be an Earth Day event tomorrow at Constitution Park in Larchmont.
Postpone that to Sunday.
It's Sunday because it's going to rain tomorrow, or what?
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
So
right.
tomorrow there's going to be a display, which is sports equipment. If you have anybody in your community that has young children, there's a reuse equipment at St. Augustine's in Larchmont, but the Constitutional Park has been moved to Sunday because of.
Okay, so thank you so much. 1 to 4, please come. I'm going to be at a table. If you have any thoughts about segments on This Is What Democracy Looks Like, please get in touch. Give yourself.